Hello and welcome to The Dirt and the Divine. I'm Krisha Young, your host and executive growth strategist, author, and advocate for living a fully aligned and unapologetic life. This podcast is built on the philosophy that every beautiful life has its roots in both the messy and the magnificent. Here we share raw and real stories from incredible individuals who faced life's toughest challenges head on, dug deep into their souls, and took radical personal responsibility for their lives. They did not run and hide from their struggles. They explored their emotional landscapes, owned their experiences, and emerged authentically living in joy and alignment. Through these conversations, my hope is to inspire you to think, wow, if they went through all of that and found happiness, so can I. This space is about embracing the journey, the dirt, and the divine, because together they shape a life worth living. Please note that this podcast is for general discussion and is not a substitute for therapy, legal, or professional advice. Let's get started. So today I have my friend again, Hannah Chapman, here with us. And Hannah brings peace to the confusion and chaos of business and personal finances as a certified financial planner, accredited portfolio management advisor, and chartered retirement planning counselor. With over 18 years experience in the financial sector and as the founder of both X Squared Wealth Planning and Expansive CEO, she empowers visionary entrepreneurs to save wisely, spend joyfully, I love that, and support the causes that matter most to them generously through bespoke financial planning and investment management and transformational human design, G keys, and prosperity coaching. She brings the intellect on board with transforming your money stories through logical and practical aspects of wealth building and business finance, and brings in the heart and soul on board through the spiritual and intuitive aspects of human design, gene keys, inner child healing, and more. So today's episode is going to be all about human design. We're so excited about this one, and we're talking about the mechanics of decision making. Hi, Hannah. How are you?
Hi, Krisha. I am so good. I'm so excited to talk about this. It's one of my favorite topics.
I know, right? Me too. We recorded another podcast and then we were like, oh my gosh, we need to do more, another one and just talk about human design. Because for both of us, it's such a powerful tool that has helped us at the individual level and that we both use professionally with our clients. You have your way of using it, I have my way of using it. But I think that, it's a very sophisticated tool that might have a little bit of a woo woo rap, but it's something that I use all the time with everybody. I may or may not go in there and do an actual reading for somebody every single time. It depends on how receptive my clients are to that. But I do use it to help them gain a better understanding of who they are, how they tick, and most importantly, how they make decisions. And I love that we're going to dive into this topic because I know for me, with emotional authority, we were talking about this just before we popped on, that like decision making was like a shit show, to put it lightly. And once I learned about my design and once I learned about what my authority, it's called authority, is, it was such a game changer for me. So I'm excited to talk about that. But before we get into that, tell us at a high level, you're a manifesting generator.
Yeah. So I'm a 6'2" profile manifesting generator with sacral authority. And some charts would say a pure manifesting generator as well, because I have the pure manifesting generator channel of the 3420. If you're already sort of invested in human design at all. So I am a manifesting generator all the way through. And actually, even if you split out the personality side versus the design side, so there's like on most charts, there's a black side with black channels and gates, and then a red side, and there's red channels and gates. Either one, even if you split me in half, I'm still a manifesting generator with sacral authority.
Wow.
So this is like, that's me. That's my decision making process.
Right.
And it's very funny because for most people, if you split them apart, if you split the, one side from the conscious side from the unconscious side, they actually would be different. So I don't know what yours is, Krisha. I didn't look yet. I could check.
Yeah.
But you being an emotional generator, actually, hold on, let's look.
I think
Uh,
I'm a projector on one side.
yeah, you're a splenic projector on the personality sides, on the black side,
Yeah.
and an emotional generator is on your design side or your unconscious side. So
Sense.
yeah, so it's
It
super,
makes
super interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, and I'm laughing because of that of the projector. Like, I often say that I there should be another type, which is like a manifesting generator. There should be like a generator projector, and I'm that for sure. Like, I feel sometimes not like the volume isn't as loud as it would be if I were a pure projector, you know but I do feel that sometimes that like that lack of invitation, quote unquote, that lack of recognition can really impact me when it comes
Hmm.
to certain, like, speaking, for example, like certain, like, I think my 4323 channel actually might be a projected channel. I'm not sure where that one lands, but anyway, people who don't know human design are like, what are they talking about right now?
Yeah, you've already gone crazy. Yes, yeah, and you're right. Actually, that one particular channel is a projected channel, meaning it needs to be invited to share its wisdom. Otherwise, people are like, nope, I don't got any time for this. Like it's called the genius to freak channel. Like, nope, you're just a freak. Don't talk to me.
I know. And when I first started speaking in my coaching business, I didn't know this about myself. Like, I didn't know, I hadn't been introduced to human design yet. And I do remember being in rooms, and I've got like these very future oriented thoughts and ideas and all of that, and it just makes perfect sense to me. And I can break things down, complicated, weird concepts down, and like be able to talk to people about it. But what I never considered was, who am I talking to? It was just like, yay, I'm this new coach and I'm out there and I'm speaking in rooms and that's all I need to do and blah, blah, blah. And then I'd be in this corporate environment or something like that. And everybody would just be like, ah. And I'm like, oh, there's something wrong with me. Like, there's something wrong, like, dang it. Like, maybe I'm not supposed to be doing this. But then as soon as I started getting into the right rooms, quote unquote, with people who were receptive, like they were open to hearing this type of information, it changed everything. And then when I learned about my design, I was like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. So I'm just not gonna take it personally if I'm in the wrong room, first of all, or just not go in the wrong room.
Right. Yeah. Be more discerning about your invitations.
Hmm.
Even which is where again, so this is what is going to like transfer into that authority piece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that,
I
yeah.
like.
So let's talk about that now because you said you're an emotional generator. So emotional is your authority. It comes from your solar plexus. I am sacral. I have sacral authority. It comes from my sacral chakra or sacral center on human design. The other, and we'll say the solar plexus or the emotional authority, that's more than 50% of the population. So
Yeah.
it's a lot of people. The sacral authority is the next most popular one, and it's around 34%. So I mean that's a big drop. So these two together they make up 85% of the population, right? And then the next one after that is only 9%, and that's splenic.
Okay.
Splenic authority makes up the next nine. And then pretty much everything after that is like 1 or 2%. So there are several other authorities. The next most popular one that I do run across quite a few projectors with this. So if you're a projector and you're listening to this, there are some with self-projected authority. And it's only about 2% of the population, but weirdly, like I know a lot of them. Um, not that I know all of them, but I have a lot. Like when I run a lot of charts, and I have come across many self-projected projectors. Um, and then beyond that, there's mental projectors, ego authority as well. Ego, you mean ego projector or an ego manifester.
Mhm.
And I think, oh, and then reflectors. So if
Right.
you're a reflector, you have lunar authority. That's the other one that's very different.
Before I just want to say one quick thing in here. So, just as we're sort of like categorizing this, so emotional authority is common across all types except reflector. So we'll just put reflector aside for a quick little second because their authority is different. But you can be an emotional generator, emotional manifesting generator, manifester, and projector.
Right.
However, you can only be a sacral generator or manifesting generator. You will not be a sacral projector or manifester because you just don't have a sacral. And splenic, that also would only be a manifester or a projector and wouldn't be a generator because it's like euchre, the game euchre, where it's like trump, something trumps it, right? So it's like
Right.
above it. Not in the political sense, everybody. So like emotional authority trumps everything else. Like
Right.
if you have that defined, you are nothing else, even if your spleen and your sacral, if your generator, are defined. And then next would be that sacral. If that's defined, but your emotional isn't, then it's only sacral. And then if neither of those are defined and you have splenic, then that's your authority. So I just kind of wanted to like highlight that. And then we've got these beautiful not anomalies, that's not the right word, but like facets, like self-projected, mental projected ego, and then of course the gorgeous reflector. Okay.
Yes, I love that. Thank you. Thank you for like laying that out that way because it's so true. When we think about how many people are emotional,
Yeah.
one nuance I want to add to that is I do believe that if say you're an emotional manifesting generator and you have a defined spleen, so then you have the spleen, the sacral, and the solar plexus all defined. Your emotional center, that's going to be your main authority. That is your authority, right? You need to go through your wave.
Hmm.
But what I have noticed and what people when I coach people on this, when we talk about it, they know the whole process. The spleen has that present moment awareness, right? It's like the goosebump. You get goosebumps, so you'll get an instant knowing of yes or no. They feel that. They understand that. And then the sacral has the gut yes or no. The hell yes, lean in, or the hell no, never, or the I don't know, I need more information, right? They'll understand that gut feeling as well, and then it has to go through the solar plexus. Then it has to go through its emotional process. So I think even for you, Krisha, you have all three of those.
I do.
And so that you like that feel sometimes that can be if you are new to human design and just learning about your emotional authority, but you have all three of these centers lit up in your chart, that can be one of the things that has felt confusing for you in life is like, well, I'll get this like in the moment, like, yeah. And then this sacral feeling of like gut feeling of like, yeah, this is great. But then after a while, like the next day, then I feel like, no, no, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have said yes. And that, it's this learning, and I think Krisha, you're going to tell us a little bit about that in a minute. It's this learning that you go through to like understand, hey, yep, I need to give myself a day because I need to know I need to sleep on it and see how I feel the next day. And then if my yes is still a yes at that point, then I know it's true. And if you
Mhm.
have emotional authority, it's one of the most important things you can do is learn to give yourself time and space so that you can have enough literally enough time to go through what does a yes feel like, what does a no feel like, and come back to neutral.
Yeah, I agree. And we live in this like really interesting society that somehow pits that sacral splenic, that instantaneous um decision making as more important. It's like you're inadequate if you don't make decisions in the minute, if you have to take your time, if you're hesitant or something like that. Can't tell you how many times I got sort of like shamed or berated or something like that because I wasn't able to make decisions in the moment. and had to take a minute, and then it would make me feel like, oh my gosh, okay, well, maybe I'm dumb, or maybe there's something wrong with me that I can't make these instant decisions. And then I would feel all of this anxiety inside of me and be like, okay, well, I guess I'm just going to have to say yes to this thing, or no, or whatever. I'm going to have to make a decision, even though I actually don't even know yet. Like, and then it's that not knowing, that without knowing that not knowing is normal, right? I felt like, okay, obviously I'm not a good businesswoman because I don't know how to make fast and effective decisions. Obviously, I'm not smart enough or something, because I don't know how to make fast and effective decisions, And man, that's so damaging. It's so
Mm-hmm.
incredibly damaging. And when I talk to people about, oh, you're emotional, okay, and have like a really beautiful conversation with them about, like, it's okay. You may never be 100p sure about your decision. You might never ever get there, as long, and I explain it like this ticker tape over time. Are you just more of a yes? Or are you just more of a no? And like, as long as you're not entering into something that's really like, oh, no, this is a no for me, and you're like, yeah, 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 no, yeah, 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 maybe, sure, no. Like, that's kind of a yes.
Yeah, that's such a good way to put it too, that, that's anything that is more than the 50%, right? On the yes, but it does feel better if you're at least 70 or 80%. Like that feels better
Yeah.
to know. But yeah, for emotional authority, you likely will never be 100% because your body takes into account the no. It
Mhm.
takes that on, it onboards that information and is prepared for it differently. And it's so interesting to hear, and I love to hear your experience around that, feeling shamed for not being able to make a quick decision. And I'm going to share from the other side, being sacral and being like pure sacral. I have felt the exact same shame for making fast decisions, for like knowing, for being confident in my decisions. I have felt that exact same shame of, well, what didn't you think about this? Well, what about that? Well, what if this happens? Well, why didn't you, why would you be so sure either way? Like, and having that damage my trust in my gut for decades, literal decades, until when I found out that I was sacral and that was my authority and learned what that meant, I cried because
Mhm.
it was like this, like, oh my, that is me. That is true. Like my gut knows. And when I am overriding, for me, it was a lot of overriding no. I would get my no would be overridden a lot. And that would be, I mean, to just constantly be feeling no in my gut and then saying yes and doing the thing that I don't want to do is so breeds the most toxic resentment ever.
Yeah.
And so it's what I found when I discovered my type. Um, I'll tell this story now. Like I also, when I was diving into human design for myself and just learning and like, oh my God, this is so crazy. This is so me. I also, pulled my husband's charts and my kids' charts and everyone I could think of basically, because I wanted to know. And I found out, so I'm a sacral authority manifesting generator. My husband is an emotional authority manifester. It's a very different type. Manifester and manifesting generator, it has that. I have manifesting in my title, but it's not the same. Like manifestors are very different. And when I found out about that and his emotional authority, I was like, my eyes were so opened to this whole dynamic that we had had. And and I say, when I say like having my no overridden a lot, like that was at work, that was at school, that was in my relationships, it was everywhere. But it existed in our relationship too, in the way that, I would think he was bursting my bubble. Or, like, why don't you trust me? Why don't you trust my decision making? Why can't you ever feel like, yeah, let's do it? He's just always hedging. And when I found out about his emotional authority, and there's actually even like a really interesting nuance here too is that he's an emotional manifester, but if you split, like I talked about, like the personality side from the design side, if you split him apart, he's a reflector on both sides.
Wow.
He
Whoa.
doesn't, yeah. So his one manifesting channel is part unconscious, part conscious, and that's his only channel. So you split him apart, he's a reflector. What does a reflector need?
Okay. So he's just emotional to throat and that's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
That's it. And so when you think about it that way, like reflectors need a lunar cycle to make their big decisions. And
Yeah.
so his two, like on either side, he has to be connected, like on both sides, in order to even have that emotional authority that needs to go through the emotional wave. But when there's a really big decision that comes up, he takes time, and he needs to take time, and he'll chew on it, and he'll think about it, and he'll, sometimes it's a month, sometimes it's many months before it's something that, he's ready to take on and do. And then he's amazing at whatever he does,
Mhm.
because when his manifesterness like turns on, he's unstoppable. But when like for me, being that like fully sacral defined, both sides, no matter what, to have to learn to be gentle and understanding
Mhm.
too, like, oh, that's a very different authority from
Yeah.
mine. Right. And for him to also, I'll say he's not into human design at all. And that's fine. He doesn't have to be. I think I mentioned that last time
Yeah.
too. But for him to understand that the way I've explained it to him is that my gut knowing is super important. And if it's a no, like it's a no in my body, then it's a no. Like it has to be. If it's,
Mhm.
or if I'm like a yes and I don't know all the reasons why, if I couldn't tell you, here's my 14, pros and two cons list, if I can't show that to you, but I know in my bones that this
Mhm.
is the way I'm supposed to go, like I don't always have a good explanation. I don't have a logical explanation all the time. And that's how we come together. And so when we're doing something, I'll give you an example. Right now, we are in the middle of getting ready to move, and we're going to be making a big move. And so there is a dance between us, between, okay, we're going to have to buy a new house. Here are the different possibilities, right? So we've been exploring and doing a lot of things and taking a lot of time to make these different decisions and not rushing anything. So for me, that can feel like yeah, let's just decide. But with something so big, when there's so many people involved, like
Right.
I'm okay with like my gut reaction of, if there's a house that I hate, I'll
Right.
let you know.
Yeah.
But otherwise, we can do this together.
Oh, totally. And I love that you brought up, like family charts and looking at all of that, when I first got into human design, it was around the time that my ex-husband and I were starting to split, right? And so we'd already kind of like been discussing it and making decisions around that and everything. And at the time I didn't know, but what I learned was that he is a splenic projector. And so there were things about his personality or his way of being that were rubbing me up the wrong way, like him offering me advice without me asking for it. And I didn't know why that made me feel so uncomfortable. And then when I was like, "Ooh, here's something that is really interesting information," and it changed the game for him completely in his career and his relationships, just like understanding, like, "Oh, wait a minute, I'm tossing my advice here to people who just aren't valuing it or whatever." Anyway, but the splenic and the emotional authority, that was really difficult to navigate. And it was hard for us to navigate that one because he was just like, now, like ding ding ding, like just like this instantaneous in out, like once the decision was made, it was made. There was no thinking about it. And I was like, I don't even know yet what I want to do. And so that did cause some damage in our union at the time. But now I'm with another splenic projector. However, he does love human design. He's really into it. And, to a degree, he doesn't like study it or anything like that, but he gets it. He can explain it to people. and at that high level. And so he really respects my emotional authority. And it was funny, like the other day we were just kind of like chilling, and he asked me something just innocuous. He's like, what do you want me to do, XYZ or something like that, or what do you want me to do, or it was some sort of question like that, and I didn't have an answer. And I was like, and he goes, no answer means no. And like he just knew. And I was like, okay, thanks. I don't have to answer now. He got it. Like he gets it like instantly. He understands that if there's a hesitation there, then I don't have an answer yet. So the answer is no. So we're not going to move forward on that idea yet until Krisha is a yes. And then he knows that like when I'm a yes, I'm a yes. Like when that gut comes up, or when that yes or no, whatever, like the what's a better way to put this, like the certainty,
Hmm.
whatever the decision is, whether it's a yes or a no or maybe or whatever, when that certainty is there, like it's like I trust myself, and so he trusts me when I'm in that, like I'm a no for this. And also I have open identity too. And so there's this whole thing on top, layer cake on top of it, where it's like, I don't want to be in this environment. Like I'm a no for this environment. I'm a no for sitting at this table when we're going out for dinner, or I'm a no for, I don't want to go in there. And he's like, cool, we're not going. Let's go somewhere else. Or we're choosing a campsite. I'm like, no, I don't know. I don't know why. I can't tell you why. And he's like, it's okay. No problem. We'll find somewhere else. No big deal. So having like your family understand your design, or no, or understanding your family's design, whether they're into it or not, like it's such a game changer. And then I think like guiding, helping guide others in this, especially with our children, if they're struggling to make a decision, or they're like, whatever, they're in it in some way, shape, or form, we can be like, hey, like it's okay, like, and we don't even have to explain like you're an emotional blah blah blah. It can just be like, it's okay, sweetheart, if you want to take a couple of days to make a decision. It's healthy for you to do that. Don't listen to anybody else. You'll know when the time is right. Like it's such a game changer knowing this stuff for your family, even if they don't really want to know anything more about it.
Yeah, yeah. And that's, I mean, truly, I can't imagine what it would have been like for someone to acknowledge how important my gut instincts are when I was little,
Oh my
right?
God.
And to honor it. Like, holy cow, that would have been transformational for me. Two of my kids are emotional authority. One an emotional, my oldest daughter's an emotional manifesting generator. And then my son, middle child, is an emotional generator. And then my youngest daughter is a splenic projector.
Okay.
So I've got the gamut. We've got a projector, we've got,
Okay.
a pure generator, manifesting generators, and a manifester. All under one roof here. So
Yeah.
we've got a lot going on. But that also knowing, that I have three emotional authorities in my house with me, and I have an open solar plexus, so does my youngest daughter. That was a huge learning for me too,
Mhm.
because an an undefined solar plexus, so I'm an undefined emotional center, will amplify everything that it feels. It will amplify everyone else's emotions. And so I spent, again, like 35 years of my life not knowing this about myself. And what did that turn into? That turned into me feeling the emotions of everyone else in the room, and trying to, like, knowing when there was anger present, or sadness, or fear, or anxiety, feeling that, and then trying to micromanage everyone else's situation to not have to feel those emotions.
I like that you bring this up, because I have noticed that for the people who are my clients or whatever, who are open, there is a higher degree of people pleasing. There's a higher
Yeah.
degree of conflict avoidance, because it is so uncomfortable. Whereas, like, I feel that too, but I do find that I can take on more, like or it takes me longer before I get uncomfortable with somebody. It's more like I'm uncomfortable with like maybe how you're talking to me when you're feeling angry, but it's not I'm not uncomfortable that you're angry. Whereas what I'm hearing you say is that you didn't use the word uncomfortable, I'm using that word, but so correct me if I'm wrong in that language. But like there's a discomfort around that anger and that wanting to like manage it because you can feel it, like it's amplified, like it's like, whoa, what is this? Whereas
Yeah.
for me, I'm like, okay, you're angry, but you don't take it out on me like that, is sort of like more my response in there.
Yes. Yes. No, you're like nailing it. That's spot on because it's such an extreme discomfort that the people pleaser aspect, we learn from a very young age how to manage other people's emotions around us so that we don't have to feel that conflict.
Mm.
Like you're spot on, the conflict avoidance, like that is the not self theme of the solar plexus, if it's undefined or open, is to avoid conflict.
Right.
That's all it's about. So how do you avoid conflict? You become perfect so that no one can be mad at you. You people please the shit out of everyone so that
Yeah.
no one can be mad at you, right?
Yeah. You
And
fawn.
fawn, yep. And my husband has said the same thing too, where, like he's like, I don't like conflict, but I'm also not gonna be pushed around. Right.
Yeah.
That's so there's which echoes what you were saying to me. Like that made me immediately think of that from him. Like he'll stand in the conflict.
Hmm.
And he's not going to provoke people. He's not aggressive, but he's not afraid of dealing
Yeah.
with someone else being uncomfortable. Where for me, I'm like, oh, I feel their discomfort and I feel it in my body. Right. So it was a big learning, like such a huge learning for me to be like, oh, that's theirs. That's not mine.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Uh, So can we talk about that for a quick second? Like how does one start to separate that? Like how do your emotions feel different than somebody else's emotions? Like are you able to sort of like pinpoint that?
Yes. Yes, and I'm going to tell. Okay, so this is a place where I can openly share these stories, which I
Yeah,
appreciate.
of course.
So, when I was really discovering this about myself and really learning how to parse through the emotions, um, what I notice is that I'm generally pretty neutral. And
Right.
most people I talk to with undefined solar plexus, they can identify with that. Like when I'm by myself, when I'm just bopping around, I'm not necessarily like high or low. I'm pretty emotionally neutral. Doesn't mean I'm a robot or cold. I'm just not like prone to as much of the wave. But when I'm with other people, I can uh, I can become very emotional. And this is also not to say that I don't have my own emotional expression, right? I definitely do. Um and related, I think because of this conflict avoidance, we tend to really bury our emotions very deeply, like super deeply, so we don't have to feel them for a long time. So in the like for instance in the plant medicine retreats I've done, in the breath work retreats I've done, the emotional purging that I have done in those spaces has been like massive, just huge. And I think it's because for my whole life it was this burying of the emotions so as not to have to feel them.
Yeah.
Um so the story that I was going to tell along with that. So as I'm discovering this, as I'm realizing like, oh, I am actually super sensitive to other people's emotions. Um, I would have these moments of especially laying in bed at night. I have these memories of like feeling like suddenly feeling super anxious and thinking about certain clients. Sometimes I wouldn't really think about the client necessarily, but I would have this like anxiety come up, and then my brain would be racing to try to figure out where this anxiety was coming from. And I started noticing a pattern that it was with two certain sets of clients who were spouses. So these two separate sets. But every time, like probably like 2 to 3 days from each of their meetings, I would start to feel this like ball of anxiety come up. And then we would have our meeting, and then it would like be revealed that they had been
Anxious.
anxious about this certain thing, or like there was tension around, this thing that we're working on. Again, I'm a financial advisor. We talk about money. It can be very tense. There can be a lot of stuff that comes up. And I generally am, the person that like gets like, so you do like marriage counseling, and yet I'm not technically a counselor or a therapist, but we do a lot of that emotional work in the financial planning container. And so when I realized that, I was like, it's always before this particular couple or this particular couple. And there was tension, like palpable tension. And then we're like working through stuff. And I, when I noticed that, I was like, holy shit, this is, that pattern is unmistakable. And I don't know they're not emailing me. It's just that the emotions are coming up because I'm attached to them energetically in our container, right? There's
Yeah.
that agreement of like, I'm here to support you.
Yeah.
That's what I was feeling. And I was feeling it so strongly. Um, Again, to the point where it's like, wait, like keeping me up at night, and like my heart, like what I'm not normally an anxious person. Like normally, again, pretty even keeled. So what I learned from that, one of the easy little tip, if that's you too, and you do feel other people very strongly, all right, I'm done channeling this for now. Thank you. Message received. Thank you. We don't need that anymore right now. I'm going to go to sleep. Like literally
Right.
allow your system, like, I received that message. I appreciate that. Now we're going to let that go for when it's needed later.
Yeah.
And taking it in as the information, like I'm just receiving information about what they're feeling right now, and it's not mine.
Mhm.
I'm going to let that go.
Yeah, I love that. I love that just as a general practice too, like knowing what's yours and what's not yours and stuff like that. And I think that that also does come with like, really deep like introspection and spiritual work and your own sort of like practices around like, okay, I know what my material is versus somebody else's material or whatever. But what a great like thing to say, like, okay, thank you for this information. This is not mine. I appreciate it. And we're going to file this away until like, it's time for me to meet with these clients, or hang out with this friend or whatever it is, like depending on how this might show up for people. Yeah, that's really awesome. Okay. So yeah, that's what I understood, is that there is this neutrality. Well, then let's talk about the emotional side of it for a second, for anybody who is emotional authority or feels more that. Um, I'm not like an overly emotional person, but I think maybe the people in my life would say that I am, but I don't feel like I am, you know, because I feel pretty even even keel. Um, However, I have been called emotional, and it's like, oh, interesting. But I think that um I'm just not afraid of them.
Hmm.
I'm not afraid of them, right? So I'm not afraid to express emotions. I'm not afraid to be around emotions. And so you talked about like emotional purging. A lot of my clients go through that because they have had some sort of repression or suppression, whether they're emotional or not. They have had some sort of that because that's our society. Hello, not allowed.
Right.
Must be, whatever. Um, and so, like, being emotionally defined actually acts as a very safe space for people to be able to blah 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 out their emotional emotions. And I'm just like, cool. Like, you're not impacting me, like we talked about before. Like, you're not impacting me. You're just like, okay, cool. Just don't direct it at me. Don't make
Mm-hmm.
me responsible for your shit and we're good. But you can go ahead and be emotional in this space and it's not going to rattle me. It's not going to wake me up in the middle of the night or anything like that. I'm not going to feel it. I do feel different things. Like I'm very somatic with my clients, and so I can feel their when when they're telling me a story, I can always feel where it is in their body, and I know that it's theirs and it's not mine, because I don't feel that same level of emotion or whatever it is in my body in that same space, right? um but in terms of like waves, like each channel connected to the emotional, there's quite a few, I think, with the emotional center.
Yeah.
And I think in a minute we'll show like a chart, and just so people can understand what that we're talking about here. But each channel has a different kind of wave, right? Is my understanding of how all of this works too. And like my wave used to be like really extreme, right? Like I used to go really low in depression, and
Mm-hmm.
like really low. And that was the bottom part of my wave. And like it was an internal thing inside of me. And it was like, oh, and then like the meaning I made out of it and the thoughts I had around it, whatever. And then I would swing back up into this like high exalted sense. And like I was like, wow, this is like really kind of, very up and down, and then the more I started to well, obviously knowing that I had emotional authority and that was a natural part of it, started to make better decisions. Like, no, I'm going to take my time with that one. I'm not a yes, I'm not a no, I don't know where I am with this, and I'm going to take my time, or whatever. And really getting to know what is a yes inside of me and what is a no inside of me, allowed me to like neutralize these waves up and down, and not making meaning out of when I was down or when I was up. And the other thing actually that my mentor taught me was to allow myself to go all the way down. So I do think that this is really important for anybody who does have these waves, because what was happening is like I would go down to a point, and then I would stop the roller coaster from like going all the way down so it could swing up, right? And so what would happen is, I can't feel this way. I don't have time to feel this way. It's not appropriate for me to feel this way. Shame, whatever. And then what happened is I would like get prolonged in the down, in a certain like state of my down, you know? And I think that's what ended up causing my depression, because it was like, oh my gosh, this is like never ending, because I never allowed myself to go like as far into the depths as like I wanted to, or I could have. And so when I got rid of that and started like, okay, what's down here? And like allowing myself to go so far down. And then I would like swing back up. And that up was like, oh my gosh, okay, this is beautiful. So then it allowed me to kind of like access higher levels of joy and contentment and satisfaction as a generator or whatever. And then eventually that started to like even off, and so now I'm more of just like this undulation as opposed to this high and low and up and down. So there's a lot of things involved in this, right? Like there's like some spiritual components to this, and then there's understanding your design, and there's taking personal responsibility, for things, and making better decisions in your life, and exiting situations that might be causing you to like feel this up and down or whatever. But it's like, all of this is just to say is like that's all very normal, and there's ways to learn how to navigate it, you know
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of that comes down to what we talked about a while ago, about that shame around like, I need a minute here. Like, I don't know what my answer is to this. And I do remember reading like years ago that it's sexy when you like tell somebody like, I don't know. And it really is. Like I play with that now. I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know what my decision is yet. I'll let you know when I know. And it's not like I'm not playing a game. I'm not trying to be a bitch or anything like that. Like I literally just don't know. And then I'm finding now that people are so respectful. They're so
Mm-hmm.
respectful. It's like, okay, well, just let me know when you know, like whenever that becomes clear for you, you just let me know. And it's like, okay, thank you, you know?
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's such an empowering way to put that, and a way to frame that emotional authority, because there, I will say, like in the sales process,
Mm,
right? When you're selling, or when you're being sold to, right? We really do try to push,
mm,
we, not you and me, we clearly, but society,
yeah,
right? Like the impetus of sales is to push people into a decision, to like get people, like to like take this corral or funnel, right? And like put you in the top of the funnel, and then keep you going down to the bottom of the funnel till you're a yes.
bye now, bye now.
Buy now, right? Yeah, or the buy now, or like the incentives. Like if you don't make a decision right now, it's going to be twice as expensive in 5 minutes, right? Like everything that tries to push us into that decision right away is completely wrong for emotional authority. And when we have more than half the population
Yeah,
who has emotional authority, then that means those sales tactics are damaging. They're damaging in general, but even more so for people with emotional authority. Um, and for that reason, like I don't do like buy, if you buy now, it's this much. If you buy later, it's this. I don't even do that. I don't have anything like that in any of my programs now. It's the price is the price.
yeah.
And if you decide today, it's this price. If you decide tomorrow or in one week, it's this price. I can't promise that I'm going to have the same stuff for sale forever. But if you decide anytime in this next, while this offer is this offer, that's what it's going to be. And I'm not going to have any sort of punishment for
Right.
you taking the time that you need to make a decision.
You're so right because I've been doing sales in my business for like since I opened the doors, right? And then in 2017 I started getting recruited to do sales for other people. Because somebody at one point saw a talent in me that I didn't know that I had, which was to do sales, to do business development. And at the time, I didn't know about human design. And so I was like in that realm of like almost pressuring people to make decisions because that was how I was being taught. Right.
Right.
And I didn't know any different. And the whole thing felt gross to me. And then when I started to learn about this and I changed everything. And now in my own coaching business, or if I'm selling on behalf of somebody else, if I'm in-house uh, business development, um, I think the reason why I'm so successful at sales, meaning why so many people come back and actually buy, is because I don't do any pressure tactics. And there is zero attrition. Like there's nobody who's like, that buyer's remorse. I have 0% buyer's remorse because whereas before the buyer's remorse was high because obviously like I can be quite persuasive, and which is why I am good at sales because there is a persuasion here because I do have that channel of enthusiasm and I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And I really believe
Yeah.
in these people. But it was like buy now, close now. And you get this discount or whatever it is, not in my own business, but when I was selling for other people. And like, so people would do that buy now. And even though like what I saw in them was genuine, they didn't have an opportunity to go through their own possibly emotional wave or whatever it was, to make that effective decision. And so then that buyer's remorse would come up and then they would ask for refunds, right? That never happens anymore. It's like
Yeah.
the enthusiasm is still there that like I think you should do this. Like I really, really do. Like, yes, this would be amazing for you or whatever, however I express it. Um, and then, but it's like, but you decide when it's right for you. You know, if it's today, awesome. If it's not, that's fine too. You know, like we're not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere, you know? And there's that belief system that like, oh, well, if you don't act now, then you don't believe in yourself or you don't um want it bad enough or something like that. And it's like, yeah, that can be true for some people, but not for everyone. You know,
Right.
like, why are we doing that to people? It's so gross.
It is. It is. And that's, we're talking a lot about emotional authority because, again, it's such a big portion of the population. But even on the sacral authority side, right? Like being honored when someone says no, that's it. Like, again, for me, a lot of my trauma around decision making was in having my no overridden over and over,
Right.
being convinced out of my no. And so to say no and to have that respected, it feels weird the first few times it happens. You're like, oh, I said no and you said okay.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Thank you for not trying to overcome my objections 6,000 times.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
it's amazing. It's amazing. And it's a healing, it's a healing thing to have that, and empowering, right? To know that I can stand in my no.
Mhm.
And that's great. I'm going to go ahead and like be done now. And so just no matter what your authority is, like having someone there who respects that is so game changing. And I wanted to touch on some of the others, so just in case there's, someone who is splenic authority, or self projected authority, right? Like with splenic authority, similar to sacral, it's a knowing, right? It's this like still small knowing that if you, for some people, it's a knowing, like they know, or it might be very visceral, might be body response. Like they might, for some people, I've had it described as like they get goosebumps when it's a yes. Like if they get like a little chill, they're like, oh, that's a yes. And if they get like a feeling of like a pulling in the pit of their stomach, or like a dread feeling, they're like, that's a no. Right. So there's, for some people, it just depends on how it shows up for you. But it could be like a visceral body response for you, in some way, or it could be just like I just know. I can't tell you why. I just know it's a yes. I just know it's a no. And to have, again, have that respected is really powerful. If you are a self projected projector, that one is very, that one is so important to be able to talk things out. Like these are the verbal processors, like on hot, like they need to hear themselves speak. They have to say the words, talk it out, talk through their decisions in an environment where, so like if I have a client who's a self-projected projector, I'm trying not to infuse any extra information or any opinions. Definitely no opinions of you should do this or that, right? Like it is a judgment-free space. It's all I'm doing, if anything, is like feeding more questions so they can keep talking and listening to themselves, or saying, "Oh, you said this a couple of times, right? You came back to this point a couple of times. Is there anything there that we need to, talk out a little bit more?" Because the self-projected projector is going to talk themselves into the right area, right? They're going to get to that point of like, oh, I just heard it. Yep, that was I just said it and that's what it was. I figured it out. And then the mental projector is actually very similar to that. But the environment in which they're talking with someone is even more impactful. It's even more important. Like you need to be in your, when you talked about like being at the right table at the restaurant, or being like, mental projector, that is so key. They have to be in the right environment. Say you're at like some trade show and it's super noisy and crazy and you're trying to make a decision and you're like, I can't even hear myself think. Yeah, you got to go somewhere else. You have to go somewhere quiet. You can be in an environment where you can hear yourself think, be in a supportive space, to be able to make those decisions for you. And then with the ego projector, or ego manifester, that's that deeply held values. Like, in your heart, I know in my heart this is right. This is what aligns with my values. I know that that's what's right. That's where we're going. Right. It's like similar feeling sort of to that sacral, but it's more, I can feel it in my body different. Right. I feel that in my heart when something's coming from that ego or heart center, versus the sacral. I do feel that like kind of deeper in my body, like coming up from deeper. Um, Yeah, so those are those main different types, and then the reflector, of course, being our lunar cycle. What's actually happening, this is fascinating to me. With a reflector, the lunar cycle, you're actually experiencing at different times of the month, the moon transits through our chart, and you actually experience all the different authorities. So you'll experience like the emotional authority, you'll experience the sacral, you'll have an experience of the splenic, you'll have experience of having to talk it out, right? Your body needs to go through the whole cycle. And then you're like, oh, well, yeah, clearly this is the answer because this is it went through the emotional authority, the sacral authority, the splenic. You're having an experience of everything through that lunar cycle. Um, so yeah, that it's really important for reflectors to kind of like meditate or ask themselves that question that they're working on every day and see what the answer is that day. Like track it. Like do if you want to move to a new city, do I want to move to Austin, Texas? One day, yes. Next day, no. Next day, yes. Kind of like what you were saying of like where are there more? And then how did you feel? What happened over that whole month? Did you have 20 yeses and 10 nos? Did you have, 28 yeses and 2 nos? Right? Like that's where you're going to have more um, certainty. We talked about certainty before.
And I think that the no is also there to ask better questions or gather more intel, whether you're emotional or whatever, you know, like maybe with a sacral, it's just like I just know that this is no, and I don't even need to do any more research with that. But with the emotional, it's like, well, I mean, yes, but I need to know a little bit more on these particular things before I can move forward confidently, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and it's interesting, you said your husband is a reflector on both sides and then like emotional too. So like, yeah, there must be a really long decision curve in your home. But that's amazing because you know that like if you're like just yep, this is a yes for me, babe, like this is just this, go ahead, we'll decide in a month, you know, but I'm a yes for this, you know. And then when he finally gets to his yes, right, that'll just be like mwah, you know, like oh my
Yeah.
god, like yay, like now we're going, right, as opposed to, you know, like if you guys didn't know this about each other, didn't respect that about each other or whatever, it's like he's like I don't know yet, I don't know why I don't know, but I just don't know, and you're like but I'm a yes for this and I want what I want, and all having a temper tantrum or something, you know what I mean, and then I
Yeah.
think it ends up being a disaster because he's like I knew that there was a reason for why I said no to this. And I find like watching my partner and his like splenic and like I like take a huge backseat when I see like there's certain situations like driving. I just don't drive. I mean, I can. I have my license, but you know, I'm a passenger princess. Um, happily admit that. Anyway,
Own it. It's good.
I own it. You know, like yes, I look good in the front seat. Anyway, not kidding, but kidding. Anyhow, and he drives and he doesn't care. But like he's like bing, 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 bing. Like he can make these like decisions that are so fast. I'm just like, I don't even know. Like, I don't know. Are we turning left? Are we turning? I don't know. Like, we would just like sit at a stop sign for 5 minutes if it were me driving. But him, he's just like, bang, we're already at the destination, you know, just as a small, silly example. But you know, I've just noticed how he designs like jackets and things like that for like DJs and stuff. And so we'll be at like, you know, whatever, a nightclub and the thing's ending and whatever. And he's like, make like I need to go and talk to this DJ. I need to go and talk to him right now. This just happened on Saturday. We were at a pretty big event. And I was like, oh, I'm so tired. I just want to go home. It's like 3 in the morning. And he's like, I gotta go talk to this DJ. I gotta go. And I'm like, okay. And I trusted him, you know, and it was really interesting because we had that moment where he really wanted to provide for me as a man. He really wanted to provide me going home so I could go to bed,
Hmm.
right? And like respect and honor that it was late and you know, we were done. We were complete for the evening. But then I was like, oh no, wait a minute. He's in that like splenic, that decision that like now's the time, the irons, like now's the time to strike that iron, you know.
Yeah.
And so like lightning fast between us. And I was like, okay, go. And then like I just kind of stood there, leaning against, the thing, like, oh, I'm so tired. But then I'm watching him, and sure enough, like he's got this globally renowned DJ's attention, and they're taking all these selfies, and the DJ puts his jacket on, and so now he's got like all of this like social and this ability to be able to like tag this DJ and all that, all because he trusted that instinct in that
Yeah.
moment to just go. Now was the time. And he got it. He got exactly what his like instantaneous vision was in that moment. And then having a partner who was also like, okay, cool, like I can hang on for another 10 minutes, it's
Right.
all good. You know what I mean? So I think, again, going back to that, like, it's important for us to know and understand, our loved ones in these dynamics too. Hannah, we're like 8 minutes into the
I
next
know.
hour. I mean, I think maybe for recording purposes, we might only be at 60 minutes, but I want to be really conscious of your time and the fact that you have other appointments, not just me.
I know. I know. Clearly, we need like a 3 hour
I
jam session.
What I really want to know, if we do another recording, I would love to dive into more about the types, generator, manifesting generator, and all that. But before you go, can I just quickly show a chart? Like, do you have another?
Yes. Yes. Let's do
Okay.
5 more minutes.
Okay. Okay. Just making sure that I've got it open behind me. Okay. So I'm gonna share my screen here. Um, oh wait, that's mine. Hang on a sec. I created a new person. Let me just search. Amazing. What's it called? Interesting.
Interesting. Yeah, I was gonna say that. I think that was a word.
Interesting. Hang on, let me stop sharing for a second. Um, where did it go? Where did this interesting new human go? Oh, dang it.
Yeah, it's for anyone listening, just on a podcast form, we'll like have something up on the screen so you can see what we're talking about, because sometimes this is just like it's hard to conceptualize unless you've seen a chart and been able to like understand what we're talking about.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I really appreciate that. As I was having some technical fun things. Okay, so I created interesting fake person. So I just ran like random birthday in this is called my body graph. And so the properties of this person, this interesting fake person, their fake birthday is 11th of February 1975 at 7:30 p.m. is when they were born. So for human design, you need your birth data and your city of birth. So I just said that they were born in Vancouver because that's where I currently live. And then this person ended up being a projector, triple split, which I'm also triple split, and emotional, and a 5-1 profile. So we'll just close the properties here for a quick second. But this is what we're talking about when we're talking about centers, and when we're talking about emotional solar plexus or whatever, it's this one right here. When we're talking about sacral, it's this middle one right here. When we're talking about splenic, it's this one right here. Ego is this one right here. And mental, I don't know that it appears in
Yeah, right. Yeah, the mental projector is the ajna. So it would be
it
a
is,
mental
yeah.
projector.
Okay.
Yeah, it'd be ajna connected to throat, and that's usually a
There you
mental
go.
projector. Mhm.
Yeah.
Or it could be just the top two connected.
Right, right, right. Yeah. So this is an interesting, beautiful, interesting fake person, I'd say.
Yeah, that interesting fake person has a completely open ego center, which is always a fun thing to navigate
Yeah.
in life. I've very interestingly, one of the cool things about human design is that it teaches us, kind of why people connect with us. And why certain connections feel the way they feel. Because, like Krisha, for you and me, when we come together, our energies, like our different channels, will link up. And so when you're with any other person, your spouse, your kids, your business partner, your friends, whoever, clients, just out in the world, you are, colliding with other people's aura, and you are receiving the energy that they have, and they are receiving the energy that you have. Right. So we're always like in these different states of connection with people. And what's super interesting to me with my clients, there are so many of them have an either undefined or completely open ego center, where I have a defined ego center or
Mm.
heart center. And from a like financial standpoint, having an open or undefined ego can say, like, I don't know how to price my services. I don't know what my services are worth. Like, I just want to help people, but I can't figure out how to price myself. And almost every single person that I have served with that either open or undefined ego center has had that hugely. And that's one of the reasons for me, like they're attracted to, they can feel that energy from me, that I have that defined ego center, that I have a good grasp of here's what this is worth, right? Like
Yeah,
here's how you put a number on it, because we live in a society that requires currency.
yeah. I love that. I'm defined too, and
Mhm.
I help people see that their inner worth.
Yeah.
It's like, and I've always been like that ever since I was like a little girl. I'm like, you're worth more than that. Like, like why are you putting up with that? It's like,
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. It's that space of I am worthy.
Mhm.
I am valuable. Like all of that comes from the ego center,
Yeah.
and not from from the spiritual community. Like sometimes we go real heavy into the destroying your ego and killing the ego, and like, all right, well, that's not the language we're using here. This is your heart center, where your
Yeah.
deeply held values are.
Exactly.
It's different.
Yeah, yeah. And that's the other thing, just as we'll close out here. But that's the other thing about human design is that there's all sorts of like words and language and things like that, and it's like over time I've stopped using some of the traditional language and I've come up sort of like with my own to just like, this is a more appropriate definition for this. Like, like how we're saying it there just isn't, I don't know, it's just confusing. Like saying ego, for example.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's your heart. It's your heart. Yeah. My kid,
Yeah.
both my kids have, I have defined ego, defined heart, and both my kids do. So yeah, like try getting them to do anything. It's like, nope. Very like, you just know, and you can like, ugh. So it's like, okay, we're
Great.
not doing anything today, then it's fine. Whatever. I'm not gonna fight with them.
Right? Yeah, you get to how to pick your battles. I think it's one of the things that you get to learn. But oh my gosh, yes, we can absolutely talk again and talk about types there, because we're so different. And it's so when you learn how to embrace
Yeah.
your type and how you naturally move through the world.
It's such a game changer.
Yeah,
It's such a game changer. I know. And there's so many layers to human design too. But I think honestly, the only ones you really need to know, if you're not gonna like need to go down the rabbit hole, you don't need to know all the things, just your type, your strategy, and your authority. And that's pretty much all you really need to know to make significant shifts in your life. And then you can go into more detail and more depth, knowing your centers and knowing all of your lines and gates and all that kind of stuff is great to know. But you don't have to,
right.
and you can really make some really beautiful decisions and changes and trajectories in your life, just knowing those top three things, I think, at a very simple
Agreed.
level. Yeah. Hannah, how can people find you?
You can find me if you go to straight to my personal website, Hannah, HANNAHR, Chapman.com. That will guide you to both X Squared website or Expansive CEO website. You'll also see my podcast, which is the Expansive CEO podcast, where sometimes we talk about human design. We talk about all kinds of things. But yeah, I would love, love, love to meet you. You can always drop me a note right there in my contact forms, or catch me on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, all the places. I'm all over.
all over the place. Thank you, Hannah. You're such a fun friend and amazing guest, and I really appreciate you taking this extra time with us here today. I'm excited to keep going.
Yes,
Um,
definitely.
and- yeah, and thank you to you, the dear watcher and listener of The Dirt and the Divine. I'm Krisha Young. If you'd like to know a little bit more about me, you can find me on Instagram at the Krisha Young. It's where my wild side gets shown. I'm also on Facebook, and my website is www.krishayoung.com, where you can watch previous episodes of this podcast and learn more about working with me privately as well. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. Thank you, Hannah. Yay.
Thank you, Krisha.
All right. Bye, everyone.